Yes, yeah. Welcome back to another episode of the Klyph Notes podcast. Available everywhere you get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and of course at klyphnotes.com. Remember that you can help us grow this situation, man, as we continue to work on building platforms to support dope creators, dope people doing dope things, man. Spread the word, share, like, rate, subscribe, the whole nine. You know what we do, what we say in this podcast world. Couple things real quick, man. Remember to check out djklyph.com or DJ Klyph on Bands in Town so you can be up on all of the things that are happening and upcoming. Some dope things that are coming up, man. Doing a bunch of ticket giveaways. There's a bunch of shows coming up in Portland. So definitely want to make sure that if you want to be, you do want to be in the building for some of these shows, man. So be sure to check out those avenues so that you can get some tickets. Also, the Vinyl Store Tour is coming. The Phase 1 Spring Tour is on the way. We kicking things off. Record Store Day, 503 Records. It's going to be a dope situation, man. So, it's an opportunity to come support local businesses, come pull up, hear some dope DJs, spin some vinyl. Just vinyl sets, man. It's going to be really, really cool. So pull up. The Vinyl Store Tour, VST, coming to a record store near you. Hey, I've been on this crazy roll recently with interviews with pretty amazing people, pretty dope people. And, the artists and creatives keep coming, and this one is definitely not going to disappoint. Let me stop stalling. Let me just do this and bring him in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Klyph Notes podcast. Unlearn the World. What's happening with you, man?
I'm here, blessed and highly favored, my brother. Thank you for having me. Good to see you. Always pleasure to connect.
Word.
And shout out to the PDX, man, all the way from the Bay Area in New York,
No doubt. So, just looking at a little bit of history, man, and how you and I had an opportunity to connect. Man, shout out to the homie Tote. Tote reached out to me.
Yes, indeed.
Bro, I don't even remember how many years ago it was, but Tote reached out and was like, yeah, my guy, Unlearn the World is, I think you were coming to Portland.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I was opening up for Little Brother. They were on a reunion tour.
Right.
We had a show up there, and that's how we connected. So I was at the podcast or the radio space.
Yes,
really dope. It was in the basement.
Yeah.
It was all types of artwork was all over the place. I remember. Right. I love that spot. It was really solid.
That's crazy, bro. Because I was trying to remember, because we've had an opportunity to connect a couple times, and that's right. That was the first time we built, bro. Yo, that was so many years ago.
Yeah, I know. Anything before the pandemic feels like 20 years ago.
Man, you ain't lying, brother.
Like, you could literally throw like 10 on top of, if it was 2016, it feel like it was 2006.
No doubt. Wow, that's crazy. Had a chance to build then for the first time, and then you just started sliding me joints and been able to play records on the radio show, Welcome to the Neighborhood radio show. And then we had an opportunity to connect a second time when you were up here at the Far Side joint, and then you blessed a brother with an opportunity to spin for you, which was fire. You know what I mean?
I appreciated that. I couldn't do it without you, bro. Like, I needed some PDX like authenticity in that set. You know what I mean?
Come on, brother. Yeah. And then we just been building from there, man. But it's been really, really dope to not only get to know you artistically through that lens, but then so many of the other things that you've done. So you have a huge fan base, not only in the Bay, not only here in the Northwest and Portland specific, but literally worldwide, man. So a lot of folk know the story, but I know that there's always a number of folk who don't know the story. And so wanted to just sort of start with your your foundation, because I feel like your foundation really builds into and on top of everything that you're doing right now. So you said it in the intro, representing the Bay, representing New York City. Man, dive a little bit more into your beginnings, man.
Yeah, long story less long. It's I'm a product of New York underground, right? Like when I say underground, I mean really underground rap from the 90s, golden era inspired. That's where I came up. That's how I grew up. Obviously listening to artists like Biggie, Nas, Jay, all of those things. But then as I was coming up, high school, even into college, I was interning at record labels, trying to get signed, all of these different things. And at the same time, trying to find a footing or trying to kind of make my inroads into the New York underground rap scene. So, what does that look like in the 90s? That's artists like MC Supernatural rapping off the top of the head in Washington Square Park, artists like Jean Grey, my homegirl Lyric, who now goes by Sarah Connor, Pharaoh Monch, Talib Kweli, anything Ruckus Records related, anything Loud Records related, I was a complete fan of, a stan of to one degree or another. And those were the people who kind of groomed me. Like low key, Jean Grey taught me how to write songs and put like song structure together. So she was with like a mentor, as as were a lot of these artists, either by just observation or being in the studio with them in the few times that I interacted. So just coming up in that energy, right? And growing up in New York, hip hop is all over you, whether it's the Rocksteady anniversary, Zulu Nation parties, like the real culture of it is there. And that's what I was always immersed in. At the same time, becoming very familiar with the music industry. By the time I left high school, I was working for Warner Music in the production department and learning like the ins and outs of the music industry. So my challenge has always been to like reconcile these two worlds, which often we conflate, but I think are very mutually exclusive. The world of hip hop and hip hop culture, vastly different than the music industry and the hip hop that is groomed and comes out of the music industry. So, with that tug and pull, I did tours with, Killer Mike and Dead Prez and all of that, and was still trying to get signed. And first iteration, music industry really chewed me up and spit me out. So early in my 20s, I'm still trying to figure out a way for myself, trying to do mixtapes, and the tours aren't popping. And, I got a chance to get a change of scenery and move out to the Bay Area. Fell in love with a girl who ended up becoming my wife, now ex wife, but mother of my two kids. And from there on, like, still trying to make a run at the music thing, right? While working a 9 to 5 job, while trying to take care of responsibilities. But music has always been my passion. It's always been my trajectory. And it wasn't until like, my life was just kind of imploding on its own where I was like, now I got to really make a run at it. And now I'm in the Bay Area. So, fast forward to the 2000 to 20 teens, I'm, you know, getting immersed in the actual hip hop scene in the Bay Area, rocking ciphers, doing showcases, and then like over the course of maybe a year or two, started hosting, started throwing my own shows, really kind of getting a lay of the land and just trying to see how I can contribute more than anything else. And that really was what built me up. You know what I'm saying? I was a host of one of the longest running hip hop open mic ciphers in the Bay Area called Return of the Cipher. I started as a participant. I left that before the pandemic as one of the directors. So just that kind of ascension and just kind of plugging in with everybody in the Bay Area underground scene was really what propped me up. And then through the course of a little bit before the pandemic, I was, really actively doing shows. And, that's how we linked up. And I was, going other places to just try to build the fan base and figure out who can connect to what it is that I'm trying to do. You know what I mean? And, I've always rocked with Portland. Portland always seemed like a really cool hip hop scene that not only appreciates the culture from its foundation, but then also just has its own kind of sauce and it's all, doesn't necessarily I wouldn't go as far as to say y'all have a sound, but what y'all do is y'all really celebrate individuality, which I appreciate. You know what I'm saying? I've never heard two Portland artists sound the same. And I've always respected that. I've always loved that. People like yourself, OG1, like some of the DJs that I've known have really put it down in a way that has shown love to the culture. And me being a New York boy, I've always appreciated that. So, coming out of the pandemic, I just kind of hit the ground running, started working on albums in LA and got management at the time. And things started just kind of compounding. And I started really not only healing myself, but working out how do I translate that into a successful music career? And I think I've kind of cracked the code on that to one
No
degree or
doubt.
another. God bless.
No doubt. I would agree, bro. Such a dope story, man. You know, as you were talking, man, I was thinking, I don't know that I've ever asked a creative and artist this particular question. I have an affinity for the East Coast sound because that's where my beginnings are. And so, you know,
Okay.
to hear that, it's so dope to hear where you really started your journey in the time in which you were really honing your craft, because that's a time that I feel like is the greatest era in this genre that I love
Certainly.
so much. You know what I mean?
Certainly.
And you know, I was curious as to, I'm old enough to remember when it was purely about the art. I'm old enough to remember prior prior to um, rap as an art form being something that that's a business thing, where it was
Right.
art, right? It was something that was used to tell stories and all of that. So as you were, you know, your journey is fairly interesting to me because you came up under and with individuals who you can tell were really about the art. But like you said, you were also exposed to the music industry. So I'm curious as to, as you were coming up, who was it that you looked at as the person or the group or the movement that made you go, this is not only art, but this is business. And I'm looking at that person or that group as the model for where I want to go with this gift of art that I have.
Yeah, man, so many, but the movements that stick out for me were Loud Records.
Okay.
Um, first and foremost, because as popular as they were to one degree or another, and as much of a force as they were in the music industry, they still were super cultural, right?
Mhm.
Like this is the record label that signed Wu Tang.
Mhm.
This is the record label that signed Mob Deep. This is the record label that signed Big Pun, Dead Prez, Exhibit. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
these are huge iconic names in the culture of hip hop who have seen their share of commercial success just as much as being and fortifying themselves as staples and icons in the culture.
Yeah.
So I got to shout out Loud Records for that. On the flip side, it was Rockefeller, right? Like my first team, if you could call it that, were like my older brother and his best friend. Both of them were interns at Rockefeller when it was a very small mom and pop label. I think Reasonable Doubt had maybe just came out. Like nothing beyond that had dropped yet.
Yeah.
And they were just chasing the dream and reflecting on, or at least telling me the stories of what was happening in the office, what was happening on the street team scene, and how they were going to clubs 30, 40 deep with Rockefeller Records t-shirts on, and just kind of getting, like, there was guerrilla marketing happening in a way that I don't think New York had seen. Like we hear stories all the time of people in the South and especially the Bay Area doing it out the trunk
Yeah.
and getting it popping that way. New York is a huge media mecca, right? Aside from being the birthplace of the culture, it's a huge media market. So you're literally one step away from the big corporate office. If you're talented enough and connected enough, you're in an office meeting and you could easily get a deal at that point,
Mhm.
right? So seeing them just come from the ground up, you know, and move the way they were moving gave me a sense of like, oh, this is what independent rap looks like. And then when they partnered with like Def Jam and they got bigger, and then now they're doing the, you know, the backstage documentary. I'm trying to remember what the name of that tour was with DMX and Method Man and Redman, and you know, to see that evolution within maybe 3 or 4 years gave me so much motivation. By the time I was in 11th grade, I'm trying to start a record label with my friends.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's what we were trying to do. I'm trying to print out business cards in computer science class and
Mhm.
buying $100 Yamaha keyboard to make beats and to try to develop my friends to be artists. It was, you know, it was a very inspirational time for all of that stuff. So I looked at those two record labels or movements, so to speak, as like, okay, this is the blueprint for what I would like to do. You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't all, you know, I didn't have the Rockefeller sound at the time as
Yeah.
an artist. I
Yeah.
was more underground. So I had to look at like a Loud Records or even a Ruckus when they started kind of coming up as like, okay, this is where artists like me will have success and they will have a lane for themselves,
Yeah.
whether it was Talib Kweli, Most Def, Pharoah Monch, Company Flow. Shout out to Mr. Len. Like he was in the studio with me when I was a youngin'. Like So I was seeing like, okay, there's a way to be successful and be your most authentic artistic self
Yeah.
without caving into the mainstream, so to speak,
Mhm.
and doing it independently. So that kind of spirit was always kind of groomed in me from very early on because of these two forces. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
when I was actually like in the music industry, like working, it just didn't have the same feel. It didn't have the same sauce. It was very corporate,
Yeah.
very like and so and over analytical, as opposed to like really making it about the craft, making it about the lyricism, making it about the songwriting, and that's what I always was drawn to.
That's what's up, man. Chopping up with Unlearn the World on this episode of the Klyph Notes podcast. So, didn't necessarily think about going in this direction, but this that that story sort of brings to mind something that I recently, I think just today saw. Um, I follow Merce, and he just posted this video, and I was kind of reading what he was saying, and I want to go back and revisit it. And I felt like it was so dope, bro, because I feel like what he was saying in the video maybe speaks to a time that you're referring to when he was talking about,
Mhm.
from what I gathered from what he was talking about, being artists now, um, artists through his area, through his era, and he himself really worked on being out amongst the people, right? Um,
Yes.
doing
Yes.
shows. He just, I think he shared that just recently he did a show. He got there before his performance. He was selling merch. He did the show. After the show, he was selling merch, like building with people. And the message that I took, and again, I need to revisit it, but the message that I took from what he was saying was creatives should take advantage of being um, being their best, uh, serving themselves best by building with the fan base. He was talking about the
Yes.
algorithm and how the algorithm, we all notice that the algorithm will sort of drive how we can connect with people. But the way that you beat that is you don't wait for the algorithm to work for you. You go out and you take advantage of building with folk. Um, like you were saying, guerrilla marketing, but that used to just be what it was because there wasn't a machine to tap into.
Yeah, it wasn't guerrilla marketing. It was just marketing. It's
Yes.
what we knew to do, right?
Yeah.
Like we knew just from graffiti to throw things up on the bodega wall or the hallway in the projects or whatever the case is. This is in our thinking. Like
Yeah.
so it's nothing for me as a 15-year-old kid to get a bunch of stickers from a record label and go throughout my entire neighborhood and slap them in all the
Yeah.
places where I know people hang out at,
Yeah.
or to put up posters really quick so that the cops don't catch us. Like that was like it was a no-brainer for us, and it was so fun.
Yeah.
Like, and we got cool points. Like
Yeah.
I would go to, I used to do summer youth employment. They all knew me as like the record label kid because I would come and bring the big pun posters and the stickers and the one-off promotional CDs that nobody had. Like they knew me as that because it was just there was so much love for the music of it, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and and to be involved, what we're talking about is commerce on one end, but then on the other end, we're really talking about culture and community.
Yes.
And to Mers's point, we override all the mechanisms of the commercial aspect of it by diving into the community. So that means showing up at the show early, building with the fans. I went on tour with Jizza and Mobb Deep in the last 2 years,
Mhm.
and as great as an opportunity it is to sit at the feet of these legends, right? My brain was like, nah, instead of being backstage trying to get a picture,
Yeah.
I'm going to put my merch in front of the exit when people are leaving so that we can do meet and greets and I can talk to people and I can exchange Instagrams and, get people to really feel who I am aside from the performance that they just saw.
Right. Right.
Right. And I think all too often as artists, we've been conditioned to think that our a symbol of our success is the more separated we are from our fans, right? If you're not doing the meet and greet, if you're just like this elusive guy in the back and all we know of you is the poster that we saw for the show, and you come on stage, you do your 45 minutes, your hour, and then you go back to the dressing room, you know, there's something that's appealing to artists who feel that need for validation, right? But also they feel the need to separate themselves. They feel the need to be exceptional. And I
Mm.
think that as I've gotten older, I've started to really challenge this idea of feeling exceptional because what you do is you separate yourself from the people.
Mm.
And hip hop is a communal art. You know what I'm saying?
That
It's the
part.
call and response.
Yeah.
It's I can't do this unless y'all are with me doing this.
Yeah.
Right? This is not Celine Dion singing at an opera concert with people in bow ties who don't care whether or not she smiles at them or looks at them. This is like we're in the trenches. You know what I mean? Like we sometimes we jump off the stage and go into the crowd and we're, and I get that from ciphers. I get that from being in high school and banging on the table and you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
all of that, that's our culture. You know what I mean? So it's important to maintain that even doesn't matter how big the venue is, how big the audience is, it's important to maintain that. And the fans appreciate it. They then want to, continue to invest in your career and see your ascension. And I just kind of learned that early on and always wanted to implement that regardless of how successful, quote unquote, I became.
No doubt. No doubt. Unlearn the world in here, man. Breaking it down. I dig it, bro.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've taken these lessons, these life lessons from those who you got to see do it, from what you've been able to do yourself and the success that you've had in approaching it that way. And you've created a platform to to pay it forward. Now, one of before we really dive into that, and bro, there's so much I want to cover,
Yeah.
but one of the
Yeah.
things that I feel like I was listening. I listen to Juan Ep a lot. I love the perspective of Cipher Sounds. So this might be where I kind of heard some of this, but even some of what
Yeah.
I have witnessed on my own in terms of certain artists and the way that I take in their creative process. I feel like the idea of not even grooming, the idea of educating, guiding, providing mentorship for creatives might be different now because and this part I've said for years because of the gift and the curse of an
Mm,
artist being able to be in their bedroom, create their art, mix it, master it, and put it out for consumption. Through the SoundCloud era, now I know that with Tidal, I know that artists can put up their own situation. And we have seen
yeah.
artists who have attained certain successes in the music industry all on their own. And though, again, I think that that's a gift and it's a blessing because artists are able to bypass maybe the bureaucracy of you got to get on the label and you got to do this, that, and the third. And no, I can just put my art out there. I think the curse of it becomes sometimes you need that person to say, nah, bro, that ain't it. Like whether it's creatively, you need to spend a little bit more time with your pen, or you need to, really consider your production, or just how you move in terms of connecting with people. You just broke down the benefit and the importance of community as a part of hip hop culture. And if you remove that, then what is the art? Is the art that I want to be very careful, but it's my podcast, so I can say it. Is the art that you're creating hip hop, right? Or uh, are you solely a musician? And there's nothing wrong with that because there's all different types of art out there. But I feel like what I've seen you do is you are creating you're creating that for the next generation, whether you call it
Absolutely.
A&R, whether you call it mentorship. Can you tell the audience a little bit about the program, why the program, what the program is, and how they can tap in?
Yeah, so I think everything about my brand as an artist, I'm an artist named Unlearn the World. It's a mission statement, right?
Hmm.
So there's only and I've tried this in my career. I've tried to do the commercial appealing records and the club bangers, and it's really hard to gain traction on a club banger if your rap name is Unlearn the World, right?
Right?
You're literally telling people to break down societal conditioning, but you want to do a club record. It's very awkward, to say the
Yeah.
least. So the trajectory that I've been on is kind of in on the heels of a KRS-One, on the heels of a Killer Mike, or artists in that ilk saying, you know what, there is a space and a lane for culturally relevant hip hop, not only to be sonically relevant in the landscape, but then also have a social responsibility to groom and to bring up and develop. I think the word we're looking for is develop
Yes. Yes.
artists. And in the face of the democratization of the production of music, right? You can be on a laptop in your crib with no A&R or executive telling you what to make. You can create it, you can upload it and get an audience, right? But not only are you bypassing the commercial bureaucracy, but you're also bypassing the tutelage.
Yes.
You're bypassing the communal aspect of what this culture is. So yes, you are a musician by virtue of what you've done, but you may not necessarily be hip hop, even if you're rapping,
Yeah.
because you've never put yourself in the test of, yo, I was in a cipher and they told me I was trash. I lost this rap battle. My older homie had to bring me to this one studio where the OG producer showed me how to develop my cadence. Like, I came from that. I'm an analog kid who grew up beat before the digital era.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like yourself, we was outside before there was ever social media.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we were outside before there was virality and whatever else these things are. So I look at that and I find an amazing opportunity. So as a teaching artist, which was kind of my, part of my brand as an artist, I was tapped to become an education director for an amazing Oakland-based nonprofit called Hip Hop for Change. And at Hip Hop for Change, we teach the foundational history of hip hop.
Mhm.
And then we're tying in themes of social justice, personal growth and wellness, and mental health into the curriculum as we're introducing kids from kindergarten to 12th grade all the elements of hip hop culture. So it's not just exclusive to making beats and rapping, which
Right.
is, you can throw a stick around and find every other nonprofit doing like a beat making class or a songwriting class. But if you want to DJ, we got you. You want to break dance, we got you. And we can show you the potential career pathways you can get from this particular discipline when you're learning from artists who are serving you as a mentor. You know what I'm saying? Who are serving you as a guide in terms of how they learned and what the processes are. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
As that relates to the music business, the one thing that the music business, or at least all the executives I hear complain, is that there is no more artist development,
Yeah.
right? Record labels, as we know them, are no longer trying to develop artists, right?
Right.
And I think in the big scheme of things, the culture is suffering for that, because now there is no incentive to go back and look at what was happening with the Code Crush, what was happening in the golden era, what was happening in, the battle rap era, the mixtape era. There really isn't an incentive. So unless you really love the culture and want to go back to that, you can have a whole rap career without ever knowing any other rapper before your era.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that to me is unfortunate, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen the result of that to one degree or another. Kids not getting guidance, ending up locked up, ending up in jail, ending up killed, ending up exploited by the music business, and they're, not owning their product, not being able to put out music anymore. And that's because, kids are, again, creating music in their house. It's going viral, and they're seeing this massive amount of success without having confronted or at least touched on some of the things inside of themselves that needs to be adjusted before you get this level of attention and success.
Yes.
And that's a personal growth journey.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And I've always said that your artist development is parallel to your personal growth. And if the two are together, what you end up with is a more developed human. Forget artists.
Mhm.
You're
Mhm.
ending up with a more developed human. So at Hip Hop for Change, we are dedicated to grounding young creatives in the history and the legacy of hip hop culture and what it means and why it's important. But more particularly, giving you exposure and pathways in all the expressive elements so that you are now, retrofitted with a multi-dimensional way of thinking, of critical thinking, that allows you to grow as a human being, to remix yourself as a better person, to in turn remix the community you come from, whether you're throwing DIY shows or you're doing fundraisers or you're tying your brand as an artist to another social issue. Like, these are some of the things that we kind of recommend and emphasize. And what you see are young people developing their craft, approaching the culture differently with a better sense of responsibility, and still making music that slaps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, that's really what it is. Like, I was just, I was uh facilitating an event yesterday, and I'm used to hosting events and doing all of that. We now have a whole group of kids who are 18, 19, 20 years old who are willing and ready to do all of that. So all I have to do is sit at the table and watch this new generation of kids run the cipher, run the open mic, present the artist, do all of the organizational things. And I'm like, yo, this is it. This
Yeah.
is the stuff that we want. I can see them in the next 10, 15 years doing the same for another group of young kids. And that's what hip hop has always been about.
Yep.
It's the thing that, because of the glitz and glamour of the culture, we lose sight of
Yep.
all too often,
Yep.
right? And we lose our own ownership in the culture that we created. So, what I do at Hip Hop for Change, or what we do collectively as artists at Hip Hop for Change, is to create that community-based counter narrative, right? We're training artists to be mentors, we're amplifying younger artists, and we're getting and we're teaching in schools, which is the big movement.
No doubt. And I love that, you know, one of the things that I think about is the value culturally, the value of looking at our history, the importance of looking at our history. We live in a time now where that's not as important to many individuals, and I think we can look at it, you know, at different levels. We can look at it as the, you know, the differences in generation, old head, new head, right, and how that can be. I don't want to hear what y'all old heads used to do, right? But the truth of the matter is, we can look at that even on a larger level and see how there are individuals who don't want us to look back at our history, that they want to erase that history. And
That's
we're
right.
talking about creatively, we're talking about artistically, but it goes even bigger than that. So to me, what you folk are doing with Hip Hop for Change, you're already seeing. You've just described it. You're already seeing the importance and the value in looking at the history, looking at the foundations, seeing how that is impacting this generation, and them being prepared to pass it on. And like you said, man, so that this culture doesn't go away, so we don't lose this culture, because there's value to it, and it is more than entertainment. It is, you know,
Absolutely.
hip hop rap music is, it's a socially conscious art form, and it's not talked about that as much as I think it could be, especially when artists like yourselves are considered to be underground, or to be not as celebrated
Yeah.
as some of the other artists who we see at a commercial level. But I am grateful that that artists like yourselves find ways to still impact people in a way that is very powerful, for lack of a better term. B.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I think that many hands makes for light work. I'm not doing anything new, right? I'm just tapping into what's already there.
Yeah,
There are so many people, Portland, Seattle, Houston, that are artists that are just loving the art and are actively, in schools trying to get contracts, trying to do either an after school program or a community center program to help young people in the way that they were helped, in the way that hip hop has helped them.
yeah,
So there's people doing this, you know what I'm saying? It's just a matter of like, how do we organize and mobilize this as a national or international movement and coalition that can then in turn give people an alternative pathway to what we've seen in the music industry,
yeah,
right? And we'd be fools to say that the music industry has completely corporately co-opted our culture,
yeah,
right? We are They have started to gatekeep the means of revenue and profit sharing that artists may have once enjoyed at one point or another, right? So yeah, we're out here spinning our wheels doing hip hop, but who's getting paid for it?
yeah,
Right. And that becomes the question. And it's like, well, if we take it back to how it started, we can pay ourselves. We don't have to ever worry about what's going on in the industry because we will be self contained, and self determination has always been at the forefront of hip hop culture. So it's just a matter of trying to think bigger and organize in that structure and giving young kids the incentive to do so, because otherwise we're in the era of late stage capitalism. And what happens with that is, as long as you're making money, no one's asking
right,
questions. No one's asking about your credentials. No one's asking about your merit, your personality, because you can show off that you drive an expensive car or you wear cool jewelry or you're number one on the chart somewhere. As long as you have these vanity metrics, no one's questioning your what they call in the academic world your bona fides,
yeah,
your credentials.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? What the streets call your paperwork.
yeah.
Like you know what I'm saying? Who approved you, who stamped you? Like
Hmm.
you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So because of that, so many things are getting lost in the process. And art for me is always the process.
Yeah,
It's always, yo, I was a kid doing X, Y, and Z, and now I'm a grown man doing ABC because of this journey that I've been on.
Yeah.
But if we don't see the journey, if we're not invested in the journey, then we just see the end result. And everybody just wants the end result without doing the work. Everybody wants to lose weight without hitting the gym.
Come on, bro.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's the dessert before dinner.
Yes,
It's the thing.
sir.
It's what I'm saying. It's the ice cream before the veggies. Like,
Yeah.
this is a process. And I think that if we get young people to be infatuated with the process, we're going to be in a better space, just creatively, and all types of things. You know what I'm saying? Like, we just got to get kids back into loving the process, or at least reminding them what the process is. And I think the generational divide is really a creation of the music industry, because the music industry, again, is a corporate entity that likes to categorize and silo demographics.
Hmm.
We sell to, kids 18 to 24 in these regions, and that's how they think. That's how marketing functions. If you're ever running a boost on your Instagram, you know what it is to see what your demographics are. So when we start thinking in that way, then yes, there's going to be a generational divide. But hip hop has never had that generational divide up until recently. I mean, in the 80s and in the 70s, we were sampling artists from the 60s
Come on.
and beyond.
Come on.
We were paying homage to the artists. There were artists who were completely forgotten about until some random rapper sampled a record and brought them back into prominence. You
Say
know what I'm
that.
saying?
Say
Like,
that.
so there's always been intergenerational communication within hip hop. So to say that hip hop is youth culture is a complete myth created by the music industry to silo the older generation who had a bumpy start, right? Got screwed out on publishing, got screwed on record deals, understood the demon aspect of this business, and now we're introducing this business to a new group of kids who have no sense of understanding of what these older people did.
Right.
And now we're telling the younger people, oh, don't listen to those guys. They're dusty, they're failed, they're all these, like, these are just myths. And the more organizations like Hip Hop for Change, people like you and your platform can demystify that and say, like, nah, this is the culture and you can still be successful and culturally sound, then I think we're in a better space.
No doubt. Unlearn the world, man. Breaking it down. I dig it, bro. I dig it so much, yo. Um,
Yeah.
the so as you are on this stage of your journey, in this season of your journey, you have not stopped. You've not taken your foot off the gas creatively, bro. Like, you continue to, like, literally show and prove, because it's one thing to be able to say this is how you do it, and this is why you should do it this way, and this is an example of great art. It's another thing to be like, don't just listen to what I'm saying, pay attention to what I'm doing. And you've talked about it.
Yeah.
You consistently stay on stages with artists that are celebrated by many generations. You consistently
Hmm.
put out art that is an
Yeah.
example of that. Um, it's a cliche-ish question. I know what I think my answer is to the question, but the question to you is, how do you keep your pen sharp? How do you stay up on your creative game?
Yeah, I think it's one, again, going back to intergenerational communication. I'm in my office right now. Literally 20 feet from me is a recording studio that we have.
Mhm.
The reason I'm not in that studio doing this interview is because there's kids in there recording right now.
Ah, word.
You know what I'm saying? And those are the kids that kind of keep me up on game. They keep me up on what's emerging either locally or regionally or just in the culture from their lens.
Mhm,
I have a 19-year-old and a 15-year-old who live in my house. They're called
mhm.
my kids, and they teach me all the new things. So I stay abreast as to that. But for me as an artist, it's aside from the inspiration from younger people and just hip hop in general, I always feel like I have more to say.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm sure you can see on this interview, I'm a talker. Like, I do this for a living, right? So
No doubt.
there's always going to be an angle or a perspective that I'm going to want to express to one degree or another. And we're in a new kind of media landscape where I can do that via podcast. I can do that via just looking at my phone and talking and posting something. But I really like to do it in the music.
Yeah.
I really find ways to creatively convey my ideas in the music, and that never leaves me. I'm always inspired.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not inspired from a place of trying to bring, my favorite eras of hip hop back to the forefront, right? Like, I really try to stay as current and as relevant sonically
Mhm,
as I've ever been or as any artist would be. But giving people not only the sense or the frequency of hip hop, right?
mhm.
That call and response, that energy that we came up with and enjoyed and loved and fell in love with, but then also just looking at the world around us and saying like there's so many things that need to be addressed, whether it's the emergence of fascism in our country, whether it's wars overseas, whether it's poverty in the local community and things that are going on with young kids getting arrested and gang warfare, whatever the case is. There's so many things that are just like out in the world that I absorb. I'm more empathetic than I care to admit in many cases, so I feel it. You know what I mean? Like I feel it, and it's almost a purge to get it out of my system. So it's always, and I'm listening. I'm listening to new cadences. I'm listening to new flows, and I'm going back to the albums that I loved and seeing like how can I bring this into the forefront of what's happening now? Like what do we I often brag about my hip hop IQ, right? Like I'm East Coast just as much as I'm West Coast at this point. So like you know what I mean? I know just as much Wu-Tang as I know hieroglyphics and living legends and you know what I'm saying? People from that era. Like, so I'm pulling from all of these different eras and these different um cliques, so to speak, of hip hop culture to keep my pen sharp, to keep me inspired by the things that I want to talk about. And life is an amazing muse.
Yeah.
Whether it's my personal life or me turning on CNN, I'm seeing things that I do want to talk about. And I think now more than ever, I think like the era we're in socially, politically, I think what I've been trying to do my entire career, the time is right for what it is that I've been doing. You know what I'm saying? Maybe when we were in the Obama era and everybody was, celebrating, maybe the music I was doing wasn't as appreciated. But I think now, considering everything we see, it's time for something that is giving you legacy based hip hop and at the same time social commentary, but then also a sonic relevance and a currency that people can't deny.
No doubt, no doubt. And I want to say thank you for doing that, bro, because and part of it maybe is the time in which I came up where there was consistently uh the the we would see culturally how there was a voice or there were voices that would bring these
Yeah.
social issues to the forefront where
Yes.
even within entertainment it was also a yes, and let's look at what's happening around us and how we need to be aware of it, and we need to do what can we do in our communities. And communities can literally be the four walls in which we live, or it can be the neighborhoods in which we live, or it can be the country in which we live. And I so appreciate that, again, artists like yourselves are using the platforms that you have with the audiences that you have to say, let's let's not be ignorant to what's happening around us and what's behind it. I think that, and I'm gonna get on a little bit of a soapbox, man. I think that we have
Good.
enough.
Speak.
I think we have enough um, tools. We have enough platforms right now to keep our minds busy and occupied on what's hot. To have our minds so that we can't really we're not focusing on what's happening outside, because and I don't think that that's all. I don't think that that's by accident. I think that it's all the sleight of hand. It's all the pay attention to what's happening right here so that you don't see what I'm doing over here. And, and my listeners know I would be remiss if I didn't say that my faith and my spiritual heritage show me like that. Come on, man. Like this is, a lot of it is what we've seen in history and the direction that we know things are going. So again, I say all that to say thank you for doing that, because I think that you do it in such a way where it doesn't come across as preachy, but it does come across as like, pay attention, pay attention.
I appreciate that. Thank you for that.
No
Yeah,
doubt.
no, it means a lot to me. Like for just people like yourself to recognize that that's what we're trying to do, and it really, you are right. I think to your point or what you were kind of touching on is that this is a more existential spiritual war that's
Word,
happening,
word.
right? It's very deep, you know what I mean? And I don't want to get on my soapbox either, but at the same time, it's like I often say that the issues we're dealing with socially and politically are symptoms of the larger existential crisis of our souls,
Yes,
right?
yes.
who we are in Western civilization, or what Western civilization has developed,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where we look at, you know, places in the Middle East or in Africa or in other continents, and we say these are repressive regimes because they keep information from you, right? They keep things from you.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are in the West, where the oppression is the abundance of everything.
Yeah.
You're getting all the information.
Yeah.
You're getting false information.
Yeah.
You have so much information, you have no discernment
That part.
between true and false because you haven't been given the education to discern.
Yeah.
So we're just going to flood your brain and overstimulate you. And by the time you get home from work or school, you are so overstimulated and exhausted. You have no political
Yeah.
willpower. You have no discipline for yourself. You just want to find self soothing comfort,
Yeah.
whether it's food, sex, alcohol,
Yeah.
drugs, whatever, to start to numb yourself from being a cog in the wheel of Western civilization.
Yeah.
And hip hop for the last 50 plus years has kind of touched on, like, hey, this is screwed up.
Yeah.
Broken glass everywhere.
Yeah,
Like,
man. Exactly.
you know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? We've
Yeah.
been saying this for so long, and people just thought it was a fad. You know what I mean? People thought Fight the Power was just gonna come and go. And it's like you look at our mainstream hip hop landscape now, and there's like, yo, where is the Fight the Power?
Yeah. Yes.
Where is the Terminator X? Where
Yes.
is the, even don't even get that political. Where is the, like, the young people saying, like, yo, this is screwed up,
Yeah.
bro? Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just rebelling against it and just being and just reveling in the rebel aspect of it.
Right.
Like, what are we actually rebelling against? You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? Like,
Exactly.
what are we fighting against? We're fighting against the status quo that we never really name
Mm-hmm.
in our contemporary modern landscape. We're not naming what it is. We're
Mm-hmm.
not naming the capitalism because we still want to be millionaires,
Exactly.
right? So
Exactly.
we don't recognize, like, oh, we're trying to survive this mechanism or this system that's oppressing us, but we want our sense of survival is to be on the other side of it. If I'm on the other side of it, then I'm safe. If
Right.
I'm a millionaire or a billionaire, I'm cool and I'm exceptional and I can pat myself on the shoulder to say, hey, I made it.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all are the brokies who got to figure it out
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
And that we can no longer afford to think that way, right? Like, I just dropped the album not too long ago called Midnight Crisis. And in the first song, I say, you can't run when the war is at your doorstep. And I think that now the war we're confronting, whether it's existential, political, social, it's right there on our doorstep,
Yeah.
right? We can't continue to entertain ourselves without having to think about critically what is happening to our people, what is happening to our souls, our minds, our bodies, because we're just going to dance ourselves into oblivion.
Yeah.
We're going to dance ourselves into irrelevance if we continue to just keep the status quo of our culture going, where the corporations are getting rich, billions upon trillions of dollars off the bodies and the minds of Black and brown artists.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
While we completely, like, dissolve into this caricature of ourselves because corporations are feeding back stereotypes to us as under the guise of authenticity.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we just got to be mindful of it. And if there's artists that are willing to at least put those ideas out there without beating you over the head and being preachy and just whispering, or not
Mm-hmm.
even whispering, just like, hey,
Like
peep
this is
this.
what it is.
Check out the way I'm using this metaphor. Like, just think about these things. Like,
Yeah.
keep them at the forefront of mind, because if you do, you're going to move through the world a little bit differently
Yeah. Yeah.
than just standing on couches and popping bottles at the club.
Exactly. Exactly. So I wanted to get to that next, bro. So you mentioned it, Midnight Crisis. Unique spelling of crisis.
Yeah. You caught that.
Break that
Appreciate
down,
you.
bro. Break that down, yo.
Yeah. So for me, it's I'm in my 40s. I'm an elder statesman in the culture, and I don't run away from it. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? I still have like a youthful exuberance to me, so I still feel like I'm good. But I've been on a healing journey since the pandemic. In the pandemic, I chose to get therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I chose to really endeavor back into my spiritual practices. I
Mm-hmm.
grew up, I converted to Islam when I was young, and I really didn't understand it, and I really didn't have the discipline to maintain it. And there were so many things going on with me that I hadn't even addressed.
Yeah.
So for me to have this spiritual practice that my nervous system can't even maintain because it's still unhealed from a lot of other traumas, it was too hard. So I had to kind of step away from it, or at least not practice it in the way. But during the pandemic and over the last few years, I've just kind of recalibrated myself to the idea of personal growth, wellness, mental health, making sure my mind, body, and soul are connected and integrated. But that requires a healing.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That requires a change in the self. So in doing that, you're going through an existential crisis, right? And so instead of midlife crisis, for me, it was the midnight crisis because I'm at home, midnight comes up, I got these cool LED lights in my house and I just put them on blue and I just want to zone out. And I just keep, I think about where I want to be in this era of my life, right? The 15-year-old version of me wanted to be a rapper and an educator. Now here I am, 44 years old. I am a rapper and an educator, right? So what does this version of me now want over the next 10, 20 years, right? It can't be the same thing 15-year-old wanted because he already achieved that. So having that kind of conversation with yourself not only requires to develop a new direction, but it requires healing. And the healing requires some level of crying, some level of emotional purge, right? And, I wrote it in a song. I didn't release the song, but I remember saying the line. I said, I've cried more times this year than in the last 5 years, right? Tears of joy, tears of healing, tears of sorrow, whatever the case is. And I think that, and I was saying this in another interview, I think that men, especially Black men, need the spaces to feel vulnerable enough and safe enough to purge.
Yes, sir.
And, there's a lot of amazing things going on in Oakland. They have these, I think Mr. Fab is doing these weekly, Black men healing meetings and things of that nature where, men of color can feel safe enough to express vulnerability. Right? Whether that's crying or just expressing sorrow. I'm sad about this. I'm worried about that. If we don't have those spaces to do that, then we are doing ourselves a disservice. So I put crisis in the way that I did, CRYSIS, to kind of imply there needs to be a purging. That tears and crying, the act of crying, is actually the spiritual technology for you to heal. You know what I'm saying? It's not just like meditating on your couch and, having an enlightenment moment like Buddha under the Bodhi tree or whatever new age philosophy that talks about the pineal gland. Let's get out. You're learning all of that to distract from the reality that maybe you don't have a great relationship with your parents.
Come on now.
You know what I'm saying?
Come on now.
Maybe you don't have a great relationship with your children. Maybe you don't have a great relationship with you.
That part.
Right?
That part.
So, I'm not going to worry about the pineal gland and ancient scrolls if I got to get me right with me.
Yeah, man.
In order for me to be
So hold up, fam, because you getting into the good part now, and technology is doing what technology does, man, and it is beginning to fail us. Let's do this, man. We're gonna take a quick commercial break. We're gonna come right back with the homie Unlearn the World. This is the Klyph Notes podcast. We'll be right back. All right, y'all. Before we continue with the interview, man, I just want to let you guys know about something that has been in the works for quite some time, man. And I'm really excited to announce that VST, the Vinyl Store Tour, is coming. Phase 1, the spring tour, is jumping off on Record Store Day, April the 18th at 503 Records in Beaverton. It's going to be just a really cool all vinyl set. And I'm excited to be able to do this with two of the homies, DJ OG1 and DJ Ambush. We're just going to be in the building community. We want you to be out there with us, man. So the tour kicks off once again on the 18th, and then we will be moving later in the tour on May the 2nd. We will be at Specs Records in Portland, and again, just going to be in the building community, vibing, all vinyl, all genres, R&B, funk, soul, hip hop, boogie, the whole nine, man. And we just want to work on building community with local businesses, local record shops, and getting back to where it all began. And then later in May on the 16th, I believe, we're going to be at Prospector Records, which is a really dope spot. I'm excited to be able to spin there. So VST, the Vinyl Store Tour, kicks off on Record Store Day, April the 18th. Pull up 503 Records and vibe with us, man. More information, of course, is going to be on the website, djklyph.com, and on all of the socials. Either way, man, just pull up, come vibe with us, man. VST. All right, let's get back to this interview. Yes, y'all. So we are chopping it up. We'll Unlearn the World, man, talking about Midnight Crisis. So it's interesting, bro, because I have been on a spiritual journey myself recently, came up in the Christian faith, continue to consider myself a Christian, but I also consider myself to be someone who is curious and learning what it means to find God, to find the Creator, through the best way that I can through my lens. And I think about, it's funny, I was just talking to my wife today about some of the things that I've learned that are kind of foundation of my belief system that make me go, yes, but this is like, what about this part? Like with this thing that I was always taught, like some of it is like, I don't quite understand. And also giving space for, my elders and my teachers and my parents. I think that they're very best to teach me the best way that they knew and understood. And so that's where it's up to me to study for myself. And, so I so appreciate everything that you were sharing in terms of purging and the benefits of kind of breaking through a lot of these things. I wanted to touch on a couple things, bro. Again, bro, just like your skill as an MC is so fire. So I gotta pull it up because I had to on what joint is it? I don't remember which joint it was, but you said something about laughing at the crystals, but crystals charge our phones.
Crystals make your phone work. That's the record. That's the song "Woe Is Me." It's the second song on the album after the intro.
So I gave that preamble because coming up in the Christian faith, it's like, hey, come on, yo, you know what I mean? Like we don't mess with this, that, and the third. But I understand why. Anyway, I just appreciate your pen, bro, because it's that thing that comes across as like I'm vibing to the track, and then you hit these lines. I'm like, whoa, wait, what? But you tell no lies. You tell no lies.
Not at all. You know what I'm saying? I'm on the path of trying to be as honest as possible with myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you just kind of, I like to make these ironic observations. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just one of those things. And that line in particular, it was always a thing. Like for a lot of years, a lot of quote unquote healing practices have always been described in Black and brown communities as like what white people do, or like demonic or occultic, or you know what I'm saying, like witchcraft or whatever these things. But it's like, if you move out of the realm of religion and you just think of it as a spiritual science, right? These are spiritual sciences, right? Christianity is a spiritual science. However you want to see it, there are values and practices within Christianity, within Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, that you apply to yourself in order to see the world in a new, more enlightened way. And there are behaviors that are recommended, not for just the good of the world and the community, but for your own soul, so that your soul isn't carrying the burdens of doing wrong. You know what I mean? So sometimes that can come across as like wacky, hippie, new age philosophies or whatever the case is. So that line in particular was just kind of like a microcosm of this larger kind of thing that people perceive. They perceive certain things as just kind of wacky and out there, but it's like, actually, it's the most practical thing. It's literally the most practical thing, right? You can't say on one face that, crystals is hippie stuff, but then you use a phone every single day of your life to post selfies that's using the same technology.
Come on, fam.
Like this is spiritual technology. We all had the praying grandmother. When do we own or accept that we can be or are prepared to be the praying grandfather? Right? We are men of a certain age. We have children. We may have grandchildren soon. You know what I'm saying? Like, when does that happen? Right? Why are we still thinking about Abuelita from 20 years ago, and as opposed to like, who are we now?
Come
You know what I'm
on,
saying?
bro.
I had an intimate conversation with my son the other day, and I told him, I said, I had to tell him, I said, you have a father who loves you and prays for you.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, in case you've never heard it your entire life, you need to know that,
Yeah.
right? And it's not just to tell him how much I care, but for him to understand the power of prayer.
Yes, sir.
This is a generation, I think, some people say that this younger generation, Gen Z or whatever you want to call them, is more spiritual than other generations before. And I can't attest to that really,
Yeah.
not in my experience. But nonetheless, I feel it's important to give kids some level of spiritual understanding. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's on a secular term, I'm not out here, shoving Bibles or Qurans in kids' faces, but let's at least start with the concept of mindfulness.
Come on.
Let's start with the concept of just being still,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're from the time you wake up, from the time you go to sleep, you're bombarded with advertising, Instagram models, music, movies, everything is trying to grab your attention because your attention is the most valuable currency on the planet Earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all these mechanisms are trying to do is steal your attention from you.
Yeah.
When do you have time? Or what time can we implement in ourselves and our young people for them to be able to sit still with themselves and just be silent?
Yeah.
And just to listen to the internal dialogue, whether it's the whispers of impulse or enlightenment, whatever the case is. So introducing just like basic concepts of stillness and mindfulness in the classroom or as part of a holistic practice of practicing hip hop.
Yeah.
Like that to me is important, right? And that is non-denominational. You don't need to be a Christian to meditate. You don't need to be a Muslim to meditate. You can just be still by yourself. You could even just look at the floor. You don't even need to close your eyes.
Yeah.
But that 5 to 10 minutes of stillness that you reserve for yourself every day can literally speak volumes in terms of your ability to control your impulses, to control your appetites, to regulate your emotions, to be more cognizant of who you are and how you show up in the world. Like, it's just little things like that, understanding, for instance, how trauma shows up in people, that people are acting based on their unmet emotional needs.
Yeah.
So sometimes when somebody's acting a certain way, or they disrespected you, or maybe they ran off on some money, or it's really not about you. It's really about what they're going through and how they see themselves. And these are spiritual, I think, like ideas that you can put into a universal or secular framework where they don't have to own the it doesn't get as heavy,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? You know what I'm saying? When you bring spirituality or religion into certain spaces, people automatically just are averse to it, right? And a lot of it is because of like religious trauma. A lot of it is just like the illusion of secular empowerment, whatever you want to call that.
Right. Right.
And I think that there's a way to kind of introduce these concepts that we know from our upbringing, that we know from our spiritual practices. You can bring them into a common sense place where people can just understand the value of it and at least start there,
Yeah.
right? Start with the just 5 minutes by myself, just closing my eyes and thinking,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
not thinking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
So it's important.
then there's one more, bro, that hit me.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been telling people for the last number of years that it's my theme song, Czarface, Me's Company. And again, I don't remember
Shout
the
out to
joint. I don't remember the
Yeah.
joint, but there's a line that you say, something to the effect of, when I'm alone, people say I'm lonely, but when I'm by myself, I'm the most holy. And bruh,
Yeah, something like that. I said, don't confuse being by myself with loneliness, because when I'm alone is when I'm at my holiest.
yes, yes.
And I get that. I get that from, I've been very astute in studying the Sufi brand of Islam, which is a very esoteric, mystical aspect of it. And there's so much that's required of you as an individual to be in that practice,
Mhm.
right? So I study it, but to be immersed in that practice is a lot for me right now in my
Mhm.
life, right?
Mhm.
So I'm fascinated by it. But there's a term, and I forget the scholar that said it, but he goes, I was searching for God and I found myself,
Mm.
and I was searching for myself and I found God.
Mm.
And what what if not solitude does that occur?
Come on.
If it's not in solitude for you to find your creator, then where are you finding it?
Yeah.
Right? Whether you're by yourself in your living room, as I'm often,
Hmm.
or you're in nature, or you're working out, you are, you know, the solitude is complementary to the mindfulness and the silence.
Hmm.
It's just being in yourself. And I think, men often are, or what they're saying nowadays is that men are confronting a loneliness crisis.
Hmm.
And I think that you're confronting a loneliness crisis only because you don't know how to spend your time in solitude. It only becomes loneliness when you're desiring to be out in the world and you need stimulation and you, oh, let me hit up this old ex-girlfriend and I just need something to quiet the noise of me being by myself, as opposed to, like, no, I'm gonna put my phone down,
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn the TV off, and I'm gonna just be in my space by myself.
Yeah.
Right? And what does that feel like? What does that look like? In the pandemic, we all had an opportunity to do that.
Yep.
And I don't know about your life, but in my life, I could see after we got out of the pandemic who did the work and who didn't, based on behavior. I was going out to them same hip hop spots, and you know what I'm saying, homeboy who's hella cool in 2019
Yeah.
is now a little bit out
Yeah.
there
Yeah. Yeah.
come 2022, 23.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And then on the other hand, there are people who are fully healed, lost weight, doing better. Like they figured it out
Yeah.
because they had time to be by themselves and confront some of the things they probably spent their entire life avoiding.
Yeah.
And as hip hop artists, we're often in nightlife. And if you know anything about nightlife, there's personalities that are in nightlife that they're literally spending their lives avoiding themselves.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? Like, I was hosting a weekly cipher for 5 years, and towards the end of it, that's what I was starting to realize. Like, oh, these people they want to distract themselves from themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm facilitating that, and I didn't know how I felt about that. You know what I mean? As
Yeah.
much as I love the cipher and I love performing, it's like, oh, this is a space for people who are running away from the most important journey they need to be on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when I talk about being your holiest
Hmm.
when you're by yourself, that's what I'm speaking towards. It's just being able to be in solitude and be sovereign
Yeah.
and be able to have full awareness of who you are, and be it good or bad, right?
Yeah.
And integrating that.
Yeah. That's what's up, man. Bro, I for many reasons, and I say it all of the time, the biggest being my own curiosity of these opportunities, people who I get to talk to, of their journey, my curiosity of what is it that makes people tick and do what they do creatively. um but to it's such a gift for me to have this place that people can share and tell their stories. And I, man, with all that you're involved in and all that you're doing, I want to say how much I appreciate you taking the time to pull up and just chop it up. And this has been amazing, bro. Thank you ever so much.
I appreciate you. I appreciate the conversation. It's always good to talk to you. You've always been a positive force and a positive energy. I've always seen that in you. So I'm more than happy, and I appreciate the time, and your platform is really dope. And you put it down for the culture. So I'm more than humbled to be part of this in any way.
No doubt,
Thank
no
you.
doubt. Ladies and gentlemen, unlearn the world. So I just want to, hopefully it goes without saying, everybody should go check out Midnight Crisis right now. It is available wherever you stream your music. This conversation was so dope, so amazing. We really got into a lot of deep and heavy stuff, but at the end of the day, don't get it twisted. Unlearn the World's an MC, and he will crush your head. So know that is still hip hop. At
Know
the end of
that
the
for
day,
a fact,
it
for
is still
sure.
hip hop.
I still get busy with the bars. Don't get it twisted.
Hey, bro, if people want to tap in, man, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, hit me up on the Instagrams, Unlearn the World as it sounds. That's my name on all social media platforms. You can also check out our organization, Hip Hop the Number 4 Change, on Instagram, but also check out our website, www.hiphopforchange.org. That's FOR on the website side of things. Check out the work that we're doing. See how you can get involved as a volunteer, as a donor, as a potential educator. We're trying to expand, so maybe maybe there might be a Hip Hop for Change Portland soon. We'll see. You know
That's
what I'm
what's
saying?
up.
Y'all are on our short list of expansion. So, you know what I mean? Coming to a school and a hip hop event near you soon enough. But yeah, check me out on all of those things, man. And, you know, I'm always happy to tap in with people and get in where we can fit in for the culture of hip hop.
That's what's up, man. Hey, yo, man. Once again, man, thank you so much to Unlearn the World, man. Thank you to all of the people who support and listen to the podcast. Remember, it's available everywhere you get your podcast. So, like, share, subscribe, help us continue to grow this platform so that we can just continue to share stories of making change, just like this one. And last but never ever least, big ups to the homie Theory Has It for creating the official theme song for the Klyph Notes podcast. Until next time, y'all be blessed. Peace.